11 yards, now has a 3rd and 4 in front of him.
Silvera on 3rd down, snap, pressure. Silvera throws it far side. It's intercepted. It's Jackson McVicker, and he is tackled over the 50 into Fort Cherry territory, and Laurel is going to win this thing. There's still 1:10 to go, but there is the mistake. There is the 21st interception by this Laurel secondary, and the Spartans are headed to Acrisure to play for a WPIL title.
Well, that about says it right there, folks. Here on Beyond the Scoreboard, we take a look back at the week that was and a week that was very great in the history of the Laurel Spartans as they take down the number 1 ranked team in the state of Pennsylvania. Upset City. Not many people saw it coming. Well, I think 2 of the guys who had a good inkling that we could be seeing this coming are chatting at you right now. Eric Thomas alongside. I'm James Dotson as we go Beyond the Scoreboard. First off, Eric, great call. It was a hell of a game we got to catch on Friday night. The Laurel Spartans are heading to Acrisure for the first time in 36 years with a chance to play for a WPIL title. And wouldn't you know, for the 3rd straight time they've made it to the championship game, they're going to play the Clairton Bears yet again. We'll talk about the full, all 4 games at Acrisure on Saturday. We'll break down all of them. Of course, big emphasis on that 1A breakfast ball game. But let's talk about that incredible game for Laurel coming out and controlling a game where few thought that they would have a chance to be competitive. They go and control the line of scrimmage start to finish and come up with a historic victory.
Yeah, they really did. And, at one point during that game, when they went down 7-0, you thought to yourself, man, if they can't stop Fort Cherry on 3rd and 21, this is going to be a long night. And they came out, and sometimes when you watch those games, you think that the opposing team that goes down like that early and gives up that big play, you think, well, they're probably going to throw a punch here, and then the 2 teams are going to settle down, and then once things settle in, we're gonna kind of figure out who wins this game. And outside of the very tail end of the first half, when Fort Cherry got the benefit of the penalty on the kickoff and then took the kickoff 65 yards, you never sensed that they were going to win that game. And I mean, if you truly watched that game and understood what Laurel had put together, you never thought at any point outside of that stretch there right at the end of the first half that Fort Cherry was going to win that thing. And that's a position that they haven't been in that since, really, I mean, last year, obviously to Port Allegheny, but then Steel High, the other time that they lost in this run, that's it. I mean, outside of that, there's been no other time where you thought they might lose a game. Even last year against Clairton in the final, you watch that game and you think to yourself, Sig's going to, the S on the chest is going to show up here at some point and they're going to win that game. And they did. And on Friday night, that really was a dominating performance by Laurel, especially the second 24 minutes. I mean, they controlled that thing up and down. Fort Cherry had no idea what was going on. And I think if you look back at it, if you're Fort Cherry, a couple things that they might have done differently. I think they might have started throwing the ball a little earlier in the game had they known that it was going to go the way it did. Matt Sig cannot throw the ball right now because of his shoulder. So they went to the throwing, offense, Silvera at the end of the game there. Might have been a little too late for that, but that's the way it goes. And the better team won that game Friday night. Don't care what the ratings say, don't care what the predictions say, don't care what people who haven't watched Laurel say. Bottom line is the better team won that game on Friday night. And that was apparent really from that 11-play, 70-yard drive that it was going to be Laurel's night.
Yeah, so let's break down this semifinal game. You just mentioned it, the first touchdown for Laurel. They had to make a statement because they got Fort Cherry pushed back, which was exactly what we had said was a potential to happen. Both teams were penalty happy early on in the quarterfinals. Fort Cherry suffers a couple of penalties. It's 2nd and 25, then 3rd and 21, and you make one man miss, and that's what Matt Sig can do. And if not everybody's flowing to the exact right spot, he's going to take it to the house, and he did. A 67-yard touchdown, and we kind of looked at each other with wide eyes like, oh, boy, what's going on? 3 plays later is about all it took of the Laurel drive before we're like, okay, Laurel's got this in control already. They launched right down the field. You're right. 11-play, 70-yard drive. They punch it in and basically controlled the line of scrimmage the rest of the game. Now, they gave up a couple of runs the rest of the way, but, in 5, 6, 7-yard chunks. not the large 70-yard touchdowns that Sig and company have been known to get all year. A little bend don't break at times, but I'm not sure Fort Cherry drove into the red zone the rest of the game. Right, it was just the kickoff at the end of the half that got them back
Yep,
there.
that's it. And I mean, think about that. It took the kickoff to get them in that position. Otherwise, they don't even sniff the 20-yard line of Laurel, and that was what to me was so impressive. The defense for Laurel was great, and the way Jack Miles played that game on both sides, but really on the defensive side. But then not enough credit being given to Brian Cooper and what he did with his offense. And I think something that goes kind of like unheralded in that game. They lose Caden Gnarly, who's been a starter on their offensive line for 2 years. They shift their offensive line around, so they put more bulk on the outside at the tackle spot. But then you break in a new center, and they did nothing risky with Alex Medved. Now, I trusted that, if you're the coaching staff at Laurel, you're trusting that he's going to be fine anyway, because he's such a steady player. But to put him in that situation and tell him, hey, by the way, here's the biggest game of your life. Here's maybe the biggest game in program history. You now got to be the center. They did nothing risky with him. One shotgun snap, I think, for Santini, and it came on the touchdown pass. Other than that, all under center and no bad exchanges the whole game.
Yeah, they only went to that spread maybe 2 or 3 snaps the entire game. They trusted the power run game, and credit all 5 on that offensive line. That played, obviously, yeah, no Gnarly out there, but you move Mahoney to tackle, Kevin Mahoney. He and Wilson as the 2 tackles, and you had Dom Willis stepping in. He and Tyler Fuchs controlling at the guard spot, and as you mentioned, Alex Medved at the center position. But then throwing the tight ends and what they were doing blocking wise all game with Ethan Hamilla and Jackson McVicker. Those guys set the tone throughout that game. So their touchdown made it 7-7. They drive down again late in the first half with a couple of big runs, and then the one pass you mentioned. Actually, that came out of the T formation, little motion, and they were able to get Carlson one-on-one. How impressive was that catch, too? You get legs tangled up, absorbs contact, the defender falls. He's able to maintain the balance enough to secure it in the back of the end zone. They don't throw it much. At least they haven't in the playoffs, but when they do, when you got a guy like KC out there ready to make the catches, throw it up, let the big man go get it.
Yeah, and that sort of has surprised me a little bit too, is the fact that they haven't thrown the ball much. Now, I think on Saturday, and we'll talk more about it later, but I think Saturday they're going to have to be a little bit more balanced. I don't know that they can be as run heavy, and that's more so because of what problems that Clareton presents them defensively, especially on the edges. So I think they might have to be a little bit more balanced in this game on Saturday. But yeah, to me, the shocking turn for this team has been all year long. It's a spread team. It's different guys that can beat you. Yeah, they can run the football. We know that. But you have this versatile guy in Carlson. You have this, solid wide receivers in Hamilla and guys like Sherman when you go to him, and when you throw to people like McBride or whoever it is, they have steady hands everywhere. And now they become this power run team. And their running game's as good as it's ever been. And they've had to rely on this offensive line to run block against some of the better defenses that they've played all year. And it really started with the Southside game when they just stomped all over them and were physical. And we were wondering all year, like, this team, they haven't been pushed around too much. When they get into a tight game, can they win it? They fell behind early with Canavan, and they never really got their footing in that game. Didn't play bad, but just never got their footing in that game. But could they? Everything was too easy for them. Riverside was too easy for them. Elwood City showed some fight early in that game, but they win that thing going away. Mohawk, they won that game going away. If they were going to be pushed against it, how are they going to respond? And man, I'll tell you, this last 5 weeks, they have been doing the pushing, and it's been as good a football as I've seen in the time I've been with you guys.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter too, those last 2 games of the regular season, where they take down Southside in very convincing fashion, control the line of scrimmage. A week after Southside was the ones who absolutely dominated in the trenches against Neshannock, you're back to the same thing. Like, okay, who's going to actually test this team? And then Neshannock gives them by far their best test of the year in that rivalry game. They win a close one. They make a defensive play when they need to. They get a blocked field goal down the stretch, and they get a game-clinching drive, which, if I recall right, that was, again, all in that power run T formation. When it's come down to it, they've trusted those big hogs up front. It's a senior-laden crew all the way through, including the program's all-time passing leader. But I'll tell you what, when you go back and watch the highlights, and we just posted a full highlight package from the Friday night game on there with all the touchdowns and all the big plays. The first man celebrating on every touchdown run is number 4. It's Lucas Santini. He's not, being like, shying away or like I'm bummed I'm not throwing the football. He's the first one in there celebrating when there's a big running play, and when you got guys like Hill and Jack Miles and Colton Carlson running the way they are right now, and throwing J.J. McBride as another senior option that they trust to hand the ball to right now. My goodness, I'd be pounding the rock all night long as you can until somebody proves they can stop you.
Yeah, I don't think I would go away from that at all. This game on Saturday is going to be a little bit different of a challenge. I don't think that they've seen a defense as fast as Clareton. They certainly haven't seen one as fast as Clareton. I don't think they've seen one as physical as Clareton. But, the way Laurel plays offense right now, the way that their running game has been going, that's going to be physicality on physicality. They have the ability to match that and kind of shorten this game a little bit. And that's the other thing that they did on Friday night too, James. That game, it never felt like Fort Cherry had the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, they needed the kickoff return to put themselves in a position. They had the 3rd and 21 touchdown. I understand that, but their starting field position, not the greatest. And it just felt like they never had a shot. You got to have the ball to score. It's funny because you look at what Clareton's done, and Clareton's got this team saying that if the other team can't score, we can't lose. And that's exactly what Laurel did on Friday night. It never felt like Fort Cherry, outside of that first touchdown drive, was ever able to, maintain a possession. It always seemed like every time you turn around, Laurel was with the ball and they were driving.
Only 8 drives in the entire game, actually, 4 each half for Fort Cherry. And I mean, kudos to them. Again, historic program records there, 40 straight wins against WPL opponents. Just in the end, 3 straight undefeated seasons. Could not get a state championship out of any of them. Got it 2 WPL championships. Could not go for the three-peat. And obviously, the historic run of Matt Saig, one of the best that we'll see coming out of the WPIL. His career comes to an end in that game. Again, it'll be Laurel against Clareton in the finals. Clareton defeating Bishop Canevin by a 42-22 scoreline in that semifinal. We'll break down that game in full, but let's look at the rest of the Class 1A state bracket here, Eric, including our Wilmington Greyhounds in District 10 on the losing end of an upset there as well. Greenville able to avenge last year's championship and a Week 0 game against the Hounds. And fighting through a lightning delay late, they take it 25-22. They made plays when they needed to. They extended plays when they needed to. The Trojans it felt like they, down the stretch, just wanted it that extra bit more, and they made every extra effort play, every bounce in the football went in their direction.
Yeah, and when I saw this, score, my jaw kind of hit the floor. I didn't think that there was any chance that Wilmington, after seeing them the week before, was going to succumb to a team that they already beat, but that's the way it goes sometimes, and you got to go through these things to learn how to be a great team. This team is still trying to build itself into one, and they're going to have to wait another year to do it. Can't defend the crown, and that's going to be a disappointing, end for them. But yeah, that too many mistakes from what it sounds like. You saw the game, I did not. Admittedly, I was gallivanting around the North Shore Saturday night, but post Notre Dame thumping Pitt. Just for those Pitt fans out there that listen, that was a thumping. But it just, those quirks and, some of the little injuries that happened and the lightning delay. And, it's one of those things. People have to remember something about these games. These are still kids. So whatever goes wrong or whatever starts to snowball in a lot of cases, there's ones that are mentally tough and that they don't give up and they keep fighting. And there's other times where you're still just a kid. And if things start to snowball in the opposite direction, it's just kind of like, let's get out of here and let's move on. And not to say that any of those kids like gave up on it, but sometimes you realize it's just not your night. And that's a heartbreaking way for that team to find that out, because they certainly had the potential to go very far.
Yeah, a senior laden group there for Wilmington as well. Chase Mitchell-Tree with all 3 touchdowns in the game for Wilmington. They just same idea. Maybe they could have considered going to the throw a little bit earlier in the game, but at the same time, they were leading for a majority of that game. and just fought through. How crazy it was too. 4:15 remaining. There's a first down run or Greenville runs for a first down. There's a penalty at the end of the play against Wilmington, and as they're discussing the penalty with 4:15 remaining, then a lightning strike, and they have to go into a weather delay. Yes, a lightning delay in a championship football game in the middle of November. Here we are, folks. But they come back out, and yeah, 4 minutes left. Greenville still has to drive about 30 more yards to get into the end zone for a potential game-winning touchdown. Wilmington held fast, and they was a 4th and 16, I believe it was, for the Trojans, and they extended the play. Thurber extended the play, finds a Hunter Cox wide open, short of the line to gain. He fights through a couple of hounds, gets the first down. They score a touchdown a couple of plays later. It's the individual efforts just ended up being a little bit more in favor of the Trojans, and yeah, that's why you play the game, Eric. The kudos to the Trojans. They're going to advance, and because of I think just maybe it was because of losing the last three against Wilmington these last 2 years, but it felt like they needed it that little bit more, and that's all it took to be able to get over the top.
And sometimes that's all you need. I mean,
Yep.
they have such a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to playing Wilmington that sometimes the frustration just carries over. And you sometimes you know that you're better than your opponent, and I have a feeling that Wilmington felt that way in this game. But the other side of the equation is if you're Greenville and you see a team that you've struggled with and they're leaving the door open, you got to be willing to just go do whatever you can to kick it in. And hats off to them because they did that.
Yeah, and hats off to that Wilmington senior class. Played their butts off yet again. Just unfortunately, a couple bounces don't go your way, and a team ends up. Every team is great this time of year. I mean, that's the long and short of it. So Greenville will advance to take on Port Allegheny in the D10 versus D9 quarterfinal match. And on the eastern side of the bracket, you got another Guilfoyle against Westinghouse game. Didn't see where that one ended up getting put, but I don't think we're going to be going up to Farrell to play that game in the eastern side of the state yet again. And Belmont Charter against Lackawanna Trail
That game's
as
actually
the other
in
games.
Blairsville, believe it or not. Blairsville, it's at River Valley.
Interesting. We were scheduled to do that game last year,
Yep.
Eric. Do you remember where that game was originally supposed to be?
It
Is it Armstrong,
was
maybe?
somewhere I think out that way. And then remember, the game got pushed from Friday to Saturday because of snow, and I think Guilfoyle was on the way to the game and at some point got stuck or something like that, and
Yeah.
like couldn't make it. We had a freak snowstorm that came through the region, and yeah, it was somewhere where we were going to get to it and
And then
go
the only
do
other
it,
place
and
that was
then
left was Farrell, I guess, on Saturday to be able to
yeah,
host, which was
they
insane.
couldn't right, they couldn't go anywhere else because everything else was filled up. So yeah, that's an interesting situation for them, and I mean that's more of a neutral site than anything. So um, I don't see, I really don't see any difference between this year and last year. I think Guilfoyle probably is going to win that game, and I think they're likely going to get back to a state championship game. They seem like they're the prohibitive favorite in the East. I know Westinghouse is, got a lot of talent and they've kind of figured it out. Westinghouse, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that team is that good compared to what they were in the past, especially
Mhm.
the team that made the state championship a couple years ago. And there's been a lot of questions about this team this year, and they've been missing some pieces, whether it be due to transfer, whether it be due to some eligibility issues and all that. They're where they are right now because they benefited from being a 1A team. I think it's as simple as that. And they get a good draw. They didn't even win the City League this year. And then, they're stepping until they get to this point, pretty much they're stepping down in competition. So I don't I think they're going to be in for a really stiff challenge on a Friday night. That Guilfoyle team is very fundamentally
Yeah.
sound. Their offensive line is really good. I had a chance to watch them a couple weeks ago, and I like what I see with them still.
Yeah, the Marauders are the defending state champions with a lot of pieces back. They're going to be a tough out for sure in that 1A bracket. Before we talk about the other games on Saturday coming up for the WPL championship, let's talk about the WPL champions already crowned. Let's start in Class 4A, and I know better than to pick against Coach Warfield and the Aliquippa Quips. I truly do, Eric. But I didn't think that they'd be able to stop Keemon Spell and McKeesport. Color me wrong yet again. The Quips are champions yet again.
Yeah, I don't think this was as big of a surprise with Marcus Counsell being healthy. I mean, he seems like he's pretty limited, but then you see the highlights and what he's been able to do since he came back. And oh, by the way, he throws a game-winning touchdown against Trinity. He plays mistake-free football and guides them against Newcastle, and they shut him out. And then on Saturday, I know they had the lead when he threw the touchdown pass, but man, that highlight's going to stick around for a long time. Him and Khalil Good, and if they get anything out of him. I mean, anything out of him. Oil City's a pretty physical team. They run the ball very well. They've gone, I think, for something like 2,100 yards this year on the ground. I don't know that they've seen anything like this Quip team. And you know, outside of the two touchdown passes that Council has thrown in the playoffs here, this has been primarily a running team. And they get behind their offensive line and they just pound the football. And they have so many weapons that they can mix and match with JJ Work and Wood, the other running back. I mean, they can push all the right buttons. They can tap into their passing game when they need to. Now, it gets interesting for them if they get through this game on the weekend and then they play Susquehanna Township, because Susquehanna Township, if they win District 3, athletes everywhere. So they match them stride for stride. There's just something about that Hannah team that a lot of people are still thinking like, how'd they get this far? Because they they really make some head scratching plays sometimes. I was talking to a couple friends that follow them pretty closely over the weekend, and we have a group text that goes on Friday nights with football and discussing what's going on. And a bunch of guys were watching that game and they were just like, man, I can't believe they're doing this again. And here, they're putting themselves in this position again. So they just got to be careful. I think they get through Twin Valley in the District 3 final, but if they match up with Aliquippa, man, there are athletes everywhere on that field if those two teams hook up.
Yeah, how about Twin Valley winning their game 48-0 in that semifinal in District 3? And as you mentioned, Susquehanna had to squeak by Wyomissing a 37-35 win. So, yeah, wouldn't be surprised if you hear Susquehanna Township wins, but the way those semifinals look, you might be looking at the other factor that Twin Valley could end up being the team potentially coming up on top. When you look at the east side of the bracket, the four district champions all left: Southern Lehigh, Shamokin, North Pocono, and Cardinal O'Hara. Southern Lehigh is still the team to beat on that side.
I don't know. That Shamokin team's had a historic year, so they seem like they might be poised to get to a state semifinal. And if they can get the other draws, North Pocono and Cardinal O'Hara, and I would think Cardinal O'Hara probably gets the win there. The Southern Lehigh Shamokin game is going to be a bit of a toss up. You go one extreme to the other. Shamokin's more balanced, but I think that Shamokin team might have a little something cooking there. This has been a banner year for them, and this has kind of been building. Talked to some people that live in that area too. This is home of Bob Chesney, by the way, whose name in the coaching search is blowing up with UCLA and Penn State and a few other places. But I think Ches actually went to Shamokin. His dad, longtime coach there, longtime broadcaster, great guy. This has been building for that program, and now it's finally the culmination of it. And this is sort of when Henry Hynoski got into coaching and was the head coach at Shamokin, this is kind of what he was thinking he was going to mold this team into. And it's now finally paying off. These guys have all come through his program at the youth level and before he left the coaching position there, and he kind of laid the foundation for them, and it's starting to pay off, and they're having themselves a historic year. This has been a big run for them.
All those games in Class 4A, and actually, I believe all the state games are on Friday. The only ones that aren't, I believe, are the four Wpial championship games. Are any of the District 3 title games on Saturday, or are those all Friday as well there?
I'd have to look. I think they are Friday nights. Yeah, they're I believe Friday night for the
Yeah.
District 3 one, especially in 6A, because 6A is going to be at West Shore Stadium. So Harrisburg can't play night games at their home field because they don't have lights that function properly. So they usually, and District 3, what they do is they go home field for the everywhere up until the final. Now the final goes to a neutral site. It used to be the final was either at Hershey Park and then it moved to the higher seed for a couple of years, and now they go back to a neutral site. So they picked West Shore Stadium, which I believe is Friday night.
We'll confirm all that here in a moment. Let's talk about Class 6A as well. With the WPL champion, no surprise, Central Catholic in control with a 42-7 victory. Also had to fight through a bit of a lightning delay in that one. in the I believe it was early second half when the Storms went through there for Central Catholic. But a Viking Storm, nonetheless, no surprise. They're on to the state quarterfinals as well, and they're going to take on a pretty good state college team. There's just talent all over this 6A state bracket.
Yeah, and Central Catholic, I mean, this is a pretty familiar route for them. They've tangled with State College a couple times in the past, and this State College team, they get Dante Sheffy, who transferred back from Harrisburg. He was originally at State College. He's going to Syracuse. He transfers back before the year starts, and he's been a big, big weapon for them. And State College just can never seem, ever since they got to the state final against LaSalle way back in 2008, I think it was. They just haven't been able to get over the hump when it gets to this stage of the game. And even if they get over this hump, more than likely Harrisburg's probably waiting for them at the other end. And they've already played the Cougars and, didn't pushed them, and that game went to double overtime. So, I mean, they know they can win that game. Where they put that game, I'd be a little curious. I don't know where they're going to end up playing that game because it's two mid-pen teams. But Sheffy in his return, I mean, he's got 22 touchdowns. He's got almost 1,600 yards rushing. This State High team runs the ball really well. They have typically been a more balanced team. This team's got almost 3,000 yards on the ground this year. They're going for over 220. That's going to cause a problem for Central Catholic, but I don't know. Something about this Central Catholic team. They seem like they're on a mission. They seem like they know they can win it. They seem like they want to play LaSalle again, and they don't care how they have to get there or who they have to go through. They just know that they want to get there again, and they want to crack at the team that knocked them off early in the year and sort of like wounded them a little bit. And this offensive line's been pushing people around. 6A and WPI, look, this goes without saying. 6A is not what it used to be. I mean, the highest classification is not what it used to be because of how watered down it is. Now, that's obviously going to change a little bit next year, but this is where you find out how good this Central Catholic team is. You don't learn anything from them by them beating North Allegheny, who they beat earlier in the year, a second time. Tough to beat a team twice, but this is now where we find out how good these teams are. I think it'll probably be a close game. I would give State College a fighter's chance. Probably going to be a 4-quarter game. They have the talent. Can they crack that offensive line of Central Catholic, get some pressure? We'll see. I still favor Central Catholic. I still think we're getting LaSalle and CC for the title.
Yeah, I mentioned 6A might be looking a little different too because I believe it's if Pine Richland wins the WPL championship game.
They move
I believe
up,
then that's when they would have enough success points to move up to join, which would just be one more player in 6A, which would not be a bad thing for sure in the WPIL. Real quick, the District 3 championship there with York and Harrisburg.
This is a good one. Central York's really, I mean, they've had a good run here since the Pervula brothers were there. Bo took them to a state title a couple years ago where they lost to St. Joe's Prep, and that was a really, really good run. Bo actually, believe it or not, might be back playing too after he snapped his ankle a couple weeks ago. That's a remarkable turnaround from Missouri. But this Central York team has the potential to beat Harrisburg. Harrisburg's biggest issue has always been the fact that they get a little lackluster at points. Their defense is really good. They've been nicked up all year long. They're not really leaning too much on Messiah Mickens as a running back. He's been more of a defensive threat. That's where he's going to play in college anyway. PJ Dent hasn't really wowed anybody running the football. There's still some questions about their quarterback play. Is it good enough? They have the skills outside with Elias Koch, and he's going to Rutgers, and he is definitely a talent that they have to handle. But this Central York team has the makeup up front that they can push Harrisburg around. Harrisburg kind of big boyed and bullied Manheim Township a week ago. That was a really good Manheim team by their standards, not historically in their run, but Harrisburg still has to win that game. So they've been kind of challenged a little bit at points this year. And, Central Dauphin hung with them a little bit in the district quarters, and Manheim just couldn't put anything together against them in the semis. But this gets a little bit different. This is a Central York team that seems like they're kind of on a mission, but this has been boomer bust for Harrisburg all year. Calvin Everett needs to get to a state title game. They need to win a state title. There's talk he might not be around as the head coach after this year's over and just become the full-time AD. There is rumored to be a succession plan with Danny Lansana, who is an NFLer, who would come back and take his spot. There's a lot of things at play for this Harrisburg team. There's always the Harrisburg against the world type mentality. They wear it better than anybody else does, but this is by far going to be their toughest challenge in this district final against Central York.
Again, Friday night for all of those games in Class 6A as well. We're going to now talk about the WPIL championship games, and we're going to go in order. Except, of course, we're going to skip breakfast ball because we're going to really dive into the Class 1A championship here later in the show. So let's start with the scheduled 2 o'clock start in Class 2A. As you take a look at the brackets, Steel Valley, team on a mission these last 4 weeks of the season, Eric. They were left for dead early in the year the way that they were playing football. All they've done is beat South Allegheny to end the regular season to earn a first round bye, mercy rule against Elwood City, and then near mercy rule in convincing fashion against Western Beaver as well. It's the defense, I think, that's impressed me the most for the Ironmen here down the stretch.
Yeah, and I mean everybody keeps pointing to, Barksdale and
Rightly so.
basically putting this team on his back like he always does. Um, Seton LaSalle has, and we've talked about this in past weeks, they've really impressed me, not just with their defense, but with all the moving parts that were hanging around this team during the offseason, not knowing who your quarterback was going to be, not knowing if your star player was going to stick around in Cleo Taylor, not knowing if your other star player in Trey Littlejohn was going to stick around, and neither one of them did. So they didn't know who was going to be quarterback. They knew that their defense was going to be strong, and this goes back to last year when they played Steel Valley, a game they dominated, a game they absolutely dominated in the WPIL semifinals, and it's a similar makeup. It's still a really good defense for Seton LaSalle. It's still Barksdale on the other end. Seton LaSalle, slight edge, I think, because their offense and the way these guys have performed all year long in the face of some adversity. I mean, it's not the kind of adversity like where, a kid gets hurt, but I mean, you go into a season expecting one guy to be your quarterback who had a monster freshman year, and you've got these two uber talents that are on the outside that he's going to throw the ball to, and then you got to throw it all away because all these guys are gone. And for whatever reason, I mean, Anthony Smith ineligible because of the transfer. Taylor leaves because of the situation with his family and the shooting in the Hill District. Trey Littlejohn doesn't want to be there because of similar situations. Both find a great home, and I just this team has a little bit of resolve to them, and I don't think that anything that they face on Saturday from Steel Valley is going to be any different than anything they haven't gone through all year long or have gone through all year long. So I don't know. This just seems like it's their crown. It seems like they feel like they should have had it last year. They feel like they should have made a run last year, and I think this is the year that they probably punch through and get it done.
And Kai Jones, by the way, perfect in the quarterfinal win against Mohawk. No incompletions. Not bad for your makeshift quarterback who took over halfway through the year. The rest of the 2A bracket got a big one there going to be played on the east side of the bracket here in the quarterfinals between District 3 and District 4 champions, Eric.
Yeah, Steel High and Southern Columbia
Wow.
This Southern team isn't the Julian Flemings and the Gage Garcias and the Gavin Garcias. There is a Garcia on the team, believe it or not. I think there's like 13 of them that are like eventually going to end up going through this program. But I last year when they didn't make it to the final, I went and talked to Jim Roth a little bit about the Troy team that we saw in the state final last year, and I said to him, "Well, like what makes them tick?" And Jim and I have known each other now probably going on 20 years or so. And I used to cover Southern Columbia my first job as a writer, and one of the things that I asked him, I said, "Well, how about your team? Like, what about your team, do you like?" And he said, "I like the fact that we grew up this year." And he goes, "Next year, that's really going to pay dividends, and we're going to be back to kind of where we feel like we should be." They've run for almost 4,000 yards. It's typical for this team. They've got three guys that are over 700 yards rushing, including the youngest Garcia. I kid about the 13, but Grady, I think, is the last one to come through. And they just have figured out ways to beat you up and down the field. And they still throw the ball. They are more of like a workman like Jim Roth team, like he had back in the 90s, where, they did have Rico Rossini and some of those guys back in the day, but this is kind of like a no-name team outside of having a younger Garcia brother. This is sort of a team that he thrives on coaching. So I wonder what the makeup for Steel High is going to be against this team, because Steel's got the athletes, and they have kind of punched above their weight a little bit this year. But I think this is a step up in class, and I think that it's two perennial powers. They're button heads. This would have been a 1A game like 10 years ago. So it's, and it was a 1A game 10 years ago. I did the state semi between the two. This Southern team though, just if Jim Roth tells me that his team grew up last year and he was expecting this type of performance this year, I'm going to have to ride with that. As much as I love Andy Irby, and he's a dear friend of mine, longer than Coach Roth has been, I got to lean a little bit Southern this way, and that's just because Jim knows exactly what he has and taps into it the best way he can.
And real quick, the WPIL champion will take on either Farrell or Richland. Farrell coming off of a convincing win in their opening round of the playoffs. Final score was 48-20 over Carson City. A pretty good Carson City team there. Jules Johnson's just a man on a mission.
Oh, he's incredible.
82 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Oh, he also had 7 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Pegues only 2 incomplete passes thrown in the game as well. Farrell firing on all cylinders right now, but this is a good Richland team too.
Yeah, and beat an undefeated Bishop McCourt team that was state ranked too. So you wonder how much is left in the tank after that, after they get a District 6 championship in their belt. This Richland team's been good for a handful of years now too. Their basketball program was good a few years ago, and this football team's been, just progressing and kind of ready to take the next step. The problem is they get to this point and they run into teams like Farrell and they can't hang with them. And we're going to find out pretty quick in this game if Richland can get through the first quarter and hang with them, the Steelers for a quarter, they're going to be in it. But if this is 14-0, 2-touchdown lead for Farrell after one, they're headed to the state semis, no question.
Let's jump up to Class 3A. That's the third game going on at Acrisure on Saturday afternoon, right around the time when people are going to start rolling in for light up night festivities down there in Pittsburgh as well. You're going to see teams lighting up the scoreboard, to say the very least. Avonworth, Imani Christian, everybody got their wish here for this one. This is the game that I think people have had circled since week 0 to have these two teams coming in at 12-0 going into the championship game. Here we got it. The Lopes and the Saints go marching in.
And, it's Avonworth's title to defend. We know what they did last year. They got to the state championship. Epic game with Northwestern Lehigh, who's still alive, by the way, on the eastern side. They got a tricky game with Scranton Prep in the quarters. But this, what it comes down to for me in this game is, can Imani stop shooting itself in the foot with the penalties? And if they can, then they've got a chance to win this game. We've been kind of waiting to see this Imani team just break through and have, a monumental win. And here they got to do it against what might be the best overall team in the WPIL the whole season. I still lean Lopes here. I think Imani commits too many penalties. They are going to, those things when you do that week 0, and remember they beat Clareton in week 0 in the showdown, the game that opened up Tyler Boyd Stadium. So we know that they have the ability to beat really, really good teams because Clareton is a really, really good team. But when you commit the amount of penalties and kind of do the things that cost you possessions, and you do them in this type of game, that's 10 times worse than what you do in week 2, week 3, whatever. You can overcome those things in week 2 or week 3. This is right now do or die. I trust Avonworth. They don't make many mistakes. They won't take many chances, but they're just fundamentally sound, and they will either grind you. They can throw the football. Their defense has been outstanding all year, and I'm banking on Imani kind of coughing up a possession here that they really need at some point in this game, and Avonworth is going to win this thing. I think Avonworth wins this thing by 10, 13, 14 points on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's also about experience. Only the second time Imani has made it to a championship game, first time that they've played at the big stadium. Epic game. I was there for the 35-34 Jeanette Imani game. I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken, where Imani Christian goes for 2 after scoring a touchdown with less than a minute to go, and Jeanette got the big stop to secure that 1-point victory. But experience definitely plays a factor. Defending champion plays a factor. And yeah, the more disciplined team in terms of the penalties. I think it was over 150 yards, if I heard correctly, in terms of penalty yardage last week for Imani Christian. So they need to find any way to avoid that. If so, they'll be absolutely into the game because of the, just they play so well. And obviously, Coach Johnson, he knows his stuff in terms of the offense. It's can they defense get the stops when they need it, and can they avoid the long fields from those penalties. Winner of that one takes on either Sharon or Penn Cambria. Sharon, a surprise victor after losing earlier in the year to Hickory. What a great game that was. A late field goal sending the Sharon Tigers to the state quarterfinals again. And on the other side of the bracket, on the eastern side, Newman Goretti and Trinity in a battle in the quarterfinals. And you mentioned that Scranton Prep Northwestern Lehigh game should be another a fun battle, we think, out there on the east side of the state.
Yeah, the big question in this side of the bracket is how is Trinity where they are? Because a lot of people did not think that this team was going to make a maybe contend for a division, but win a district title was kind of eye opening. And this program has been through a lot in recent years. They were about to get a lot of funding from an anonymous donor to build a brand new stadium, and they had Jordan Hill there as the head coach, the former Penn State player and NFL player. Healy used to go back to Penn State, and when he left, they've been through like two athletic directors. There was a controversy with their girls basketball coach and getting fired. Then the replacement for the girls team quits before, a couple weeks ago before the season starts. There's just been a lot of up and down with this athletic program and searching for stability. And the other thing you got to keep in mind too, James, their best player that should be on the field for them in this senior class, Messiah Mickens, left and is at Harrisburg. So that was a big void that was left there. And all of a sudden, you're wondering like, man, is this program really going to ever rebound? But they got Brandon Harris, who's a hell of a running back. He's gone for over 100 yards in each of the last 3 games. He was close. I think actually it might be the last 4 games that he's gone over 100 yards. They throw the ball really well. Their defense is fundamentally sound as well. They've always been a very solid defensive team, even going back in the day, like to the 90s with Jeff Boger when he was the head coach. I just don't know if they had the level of athlete to hang with Newman Goretti at this point. Now, Newman Goretti, on the other hand, a team that, again, much like a Amani, has been itching to break through in these big state playoff games when it comes to football, and they just haven't been able to do it. So we'll see if the Catholic League, that lower tier of the Catholic League, has helped them prepare. I think Trinity's probably played a slighter, tougher schedule. And Trinity, again, they can run the ball in their balance. So this should be a 4-quarter game. I don't really have a lean one way or another. I just know that this Trinity team has been kind of on fire and playing a little bit more with house money, and I think that might make them a little bit more dangerous.
I'll give a shout out to Ian there at the Wpial Blitz because he's come up with a mathematical formula, and you know me with the numbers. I love as they come up. Uh, every single state bracket with the 8 teams remaining. In every single bracket, the top 10 teams in his rankings were among the 8 teams that were remaining. The only one that was an outlier was in Class 3A here, where Sharon was a little bit lower, and I believe Oil City was a little bit lower in the Class 4A tournament. I think maybe at like 11 or 12. But big shout out to Ian. He's got the math. I'm gonna figure out that formula at some point because that's been a lot of fun to follow over the course of the year, and it winds down to seeing the main teams that we expected to be making these runs. Lo and behold, here they are, still in the top 10 rank amongst the 8 teams remaining in each of the classifications. The final game for the WPIL, before we talk about the game itself, Eric, what time, 8 o'clock scheduled start, what time will Pine Richland and Peters Township actually kick off?
There is no chance that game's kicking off at 9:30. I'm going to say over under 9:30.
Yeah, I'll take the under, but only by a couple of minutes. I mean, yeah, we've been there for events over. First off, a great event. Glad we can be a part of it this year. The 4 games there at Acrisure Stadium. Yeah, we've been at games where you didn't get that last game kicked off until well after 9 o'clock, and it makes for some long days and nights there, but worth every minute there at Old Heinz Field, now Acrisure Stadium. Let's talk about it. Again, another one that we were all anticipating and hoping, I think, secretly to be able to see this matchup again. Pine Richland, Peters Township. 3rd time's a charm. They split the last 2. Who comes out this time?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's Pine Richlands to lose, and all the things that they've done. You think about the North Allegheny game that they had, and you think about the explosiveness that they've had. And Ubi Strader, this seems like it's his year. They were close last year. They lost to a generational McDevitt team in that Western final. But yet Nolan DeLucia and company know what it takes to get to a PIAA title game and know exactly how to win this game. Peters, to me, does not wow you, but then you see what they did against Upper St. Clair last week, and you're like, well, where's this been all year? I mean, they Cole Newpaver, he's been really, really good running the football, almost 1,400 yards. 24 touchdowns. DeLucia's been solid again, almost 3 grand passing, 22 touchdowns. Receiving core is really good. PJ Luke has been outstanding for this team. I think they have like 5 guys that have 20 or more receptions, so they spread it around. And then on the other side, Khalil Taylor and company and Ubi and those guys, man, I just wonder, did they sort of coast a little too much through the regular season? And I worry a little bit about that in the playoffs, but maybe last week was also their scare too. I think a lot of people thought Moon was going to give them a close game and did, and shouldn't be surprised by that. They needed a Khalil Taylor pick six to win that game. But that's also the other point too, is like Peters has really, really good talent. DeLucia's fantastic. A couple linemen on their team are really good. They don't have Khalil Taylor. They
Mhm.
don't have Lawrence Timmons. They don't have, Ubi Strader. They're just this just seems like the type of game where Taylor, I remember when Penn Hills, who was coached by John Ladon, who's the head coach at Pine Richland, when they won the state title a couple of years ago against Manheim Central, there was a guy named Daquan Hardy who ended up going to Division One. He actually transferred to Penn State for a little bit and played there, and he had 4 touchdowns in that game, including a 101-yard pick six that broke Manheim's back right before the half. And it's that level of player that's the type of guy that Khalil Taylor is. I think he's better than Daquan Hardy, to be honest. But that's the type of athlete that separates himself from everybody else and helps the team separate itself from everybody else. I gotta Pine Richland, just an edge
Mhm.
on talent, and I think they're too explosive. I think it's going to be a back and forth game. I think it can end up being a 1 point game or one possession game, but I just think Pine Richland has too much talent, and I think they get this thing tonight on a Saturday night.
Yeah, I love how both quarterbacks they're so good at distributing the ball to a multitude of weapons. Like you mentioned, yeah, 5 that have over 20 receptions for Peters, and I think the sixth one has 19 catches, so he's right there as well. Spreading the wealth around, and obviously, 3 great receivers catching the ball for Pine Richland as well. That could pose some issues. Again, just they're both so smart. They're not turning the ball over. About a 4-to-1, 6-to-1 ratio between the two of them in terms of touchdown interception. Which team can force the other quarterback into an errant throw will end up being a difference. And as you mentioned, the pick six last week, Taylor and Timmons, those guys especially are just ball hawks, and you're going to give an edge to them. But don't be surprised. I would not be surprised at all if Peters ends up pulling off what would be considered an upset on paper, but overall, I think it's going to be a great nightcap, and you hope that the field can hold up for the course of 4 games. We know how that always goes down there at Acrisure as well. Switch over to the state bracket real quick, Eric, for Class 5A here as we preview everything. Winner of this one will take on the District 3 champion as McDevitt and Slanka go in battle in that one. And then on the other side, you'll have a District 1 championship going on this weekend, and Hollidaysburg and Roman Catholic. Another fun one. 4 great games in the quarterfinals for 5A.
Yeah, and the other semi or the other Eastern semi, Springfield, Delco, and Chester. That Chester team is one that thought they should be in a state final a year ago, and they bring a lot of that talent back. So that's a lot of firepower there for the Clippers, and that should be an interesting matchup if we get to a Roman Catholic Chester matchup in the state semis. This Bishop McDevitt team on the western side, James, is playing its best football right now. Sebastian Williams, a lot of questions about him this year going into the season and how he was going to replace Stone Saunders, who's at Kentucky. And I talked to there's a legendary former coach at McDevitt named Mike Fry, who's been a long, long time friend of my family, and I had the opportunity to run into him over the summer when I was back in Harrisburg. And I said, "Well, what do you think about Sebastian this year?" And he was like, "I'll tell you what." He's like, Mike's 91 years old, but he knows ball more than anybody I think I could talk to in the Harrisburg region. But he said, the one thing about him is where Stone would throw guys open and make the big pass. If this isn't there, Sebastian can break down and run the ball. And I think that's key when you get into these games against Pine Richland and Peters and Chester and Roman Catholic teams that have ultra speed everywhere. Now, I do think the winner of the WPIL game is the favorite to go to Cumberland Valley, but the way McDevitt is playing right now, they're at peak. Their offensive line is clicking. They're healthy. Nazir Jones-Davis, their running back, Maurice Barnes, those two guys are healthy. Sebastian Williams is playing his best ball, and they've got it rolling. They struggled early in the year against one of the teams from Canada, and they struggled against Harrisburg. They struggled against a couple of other teams here and there. They had a close loss or a close win against Central Dauphin, a team that was gritty all year long. This team is playing its best ball. They're going to smash Solanco on Friday night. They're going to win another district title for Jeff Wechter, who would win his 300th game. And then it's either Peters or Pine Richland in what's going to be an epic semifinal. And this is the best bracket in the state. I think it is top to bottom. If you get Chester, Roman, and then either WPL team and McDevitt, that's the best Final Four you'll get in any class. I don't think there's any question about that. I still think the WPL winner comes out of the West, and I think Roman's going to get back there from the East. Roman just has too much firepower. Rick Preet, that team, much like a lot of teams in the state that lose a state title, playing with a chip on its shoulder this year, and they are leaving everybody in the waste. I mean, they will not take any prisoners against Hollidaysburg, and I think that they're hell bent on getting back to Cumberland Valley to win a title that they think they left on the table last year against McDevitt.
So before we talk about the big game, at least for our Lawrence County faithful out there, the Class 1A championship, do want to mention all 4 WPIL championship games are going to be televised on KDKA Plus. So you can watch those games live. They are available on the NFHS network as well, and streaming on the KDKA Plus app through the internet. However, I'll be honest, don't exactly understand how exactly that one works. Also want to remind people who are going down to the games at Acrisure on Saturday, there's no free parking anywhere. I guess technically you could try to park at the casino. That's a hefty walk. You got to walk through the casino. So if you have youngsters, can't be doing that either. So find a garage, find a lot, probably $10, $15 will be the cost for parking anywhere for that one. And the other thing too is that all the tickets are online. Now the ticket booth will be available that you can purchase once you get there through the normal ticketing booths. But everything's going to be digitalized tickets, easy for me to say, and everything inside the stadium is cashless. So don't be going to a concession stand with that $5 bill or all those old pennies you want to get rid of, because they will not be accepting any of that. If you are watching on KDK Plus, NFHS network for that matter, awesome. Hit the mute button though, and listen to Eric and I. We'll be on the call from Acrisure Stadium for that championship game. We'll be on the air about 10:30. Kickoff officially is at 11:05, and give a huge shout out to a lot of our, all of our sponsors all year are great. I want to give a shout out to some specific sponsors who are helping us out with this championship broadcast. Sneezek Farms, Wolf's Foreign Auto, Briar Brook Barn, Vision Ministries of Lawrence County, Shingle Decker Insurance, and the Laurel Administration, all helping us out with the rights fees and everything to be able to get this game on the air for you on Saturday morning. So big shout out to them. And again, all of our sponsors all year long for helping us out with the Lawrence County SportsNets. We got 50 plus broadcasts on here in the fall already. We've had fantastic coverage of football, volleyball, and soccer as well. And it's going to continue into the winter months very quickly, but hopefully we can continue to be following on the gridiron. And it's going to depend upon Laurel. Can they get their second ever WPIL championship? So Eric, let's dive deep into this one. 2-seeded Bears, 4-seeded Spartans in a matchup that just feels like you keep on getting it. And I want to start with this. I want to start with the fun history. The last time Laurel was in the finals was in 1989. It was Laurel against Clairton. Some names for those two teams. Clairton's quarterback, a guy by the name of Wayne Wade, the current coach at Clairton. The Laurel Spartans, featured head coach at that point, George Miles. He's now the special teams coach here at Laurel still. His son, Ryan Miles, was on that team. Ryan is the offensive line coach for the Spartans. His son, George's grandson, Jack, the leading tackler on this Laurel Spartans team. Also had guys like the names of Mitch Maley being part of that team in '89. How about Todd Atkins? Want to talk about a name to throw out there? as one of the big players there for that Laurel Spartan team. Um, the history, just in terms of going back and reading up and remembering, oh yeah, he was on that team. Oh my, that was that year. Has been really fun in figuring all this out as we get ready for this Laurel Clareton game.
Yeah, there is a lot of history here, but this game's going to come down to who wants to carve their own. And
Hmm.
I saw this Clarendon team when these guys were sophomores, and I thought, man, this team is going to be really, really good in another year or two. And wasn't wrong because they were fantastic last year. They feel like they should have won the WPIL title a year ago, but Matt Sig in one of the most incredible performances late in the game took it away from them. And they come back this year, they lose to Amani. We know how good that Amani team's been. They're undefeated. They're playing for a district title. And they were held in check in that game, only ran for like 2 yards a carry. Um, this Clarendon team has shown me something in recent weeks that was missing from this team a couple years ago. And this comes with a lot of maturity. And this comes with having a guy like Wayne Wade as your head coach too. 2 years ago, they just wanted to go bludgeon people. And the game I saw them play against Leechburg, it was just, we need to win. We're just going to win. We're winning this game. You can't stop us. We're coming after you from every direction. Big play after big play after big play. They had almost 300 yards of penalties in that game. They had almost as many yards and penalties as they did offense in that game. So it was almost a net zero type game when you added the penalties up. And that's when I wrote that story that night for the Trib, I thought to myself, damn, if this team really grows up, they're going to be a nightmare. And they kind of reminded me a little bit about the teams that went on the 66 game winning streak and some of the earlier ones in the 90s and the 80s. And it was going to be about these kids like buying into it and understanding the history of their program. Well, what they've done the last couple of weeks is they've taken this explosive offense and they've said, man, we're just going to line up much like Laurel did last week against Fort Cherry in the T formation, and we're going to run the ball and we're going to
Yeah.
pound you. And it's a maturity level that this team together, this core understands they needed to get to put themselves in a position to win this title again. And I mean, look, their defense is relentless. It's fast. It's the fastest thing you're going to see. Almost, you're grateful that this game isn't on turf because they can be that much faster on turf. They got 6 guys that run a 4.5, so we know there's speed everywhere. They recover like crazy on defense. You think you might have a deep ball with somebody, and then all of a sudden there's 2 guys coming back in coverage to try to knock the ball away. They've got everything you need to win the game. Here's the other side of it, though. So does Laurel.
Hmm.
And where Clareton might be a little bit more fast on the edge, Laurel's got the size, and Laurel's got the experience, and Laurel's got the grittiness inside, and their defense is great. This game's going to come down to two things for me. Number one, well, we'll say three. Number one, the weather, because we don't know what the hell it's going to be on Saturday. I mean,
Oh.
they're calling for rain all day Friday. They're calling for rain on Saturday. This thing could be messy. And you were talking about the 5A game, coming up at 11:30 Saturday night, and what the field might be like. I say 11:30 in jest, but coming up on Saturday night, what that field might be like. I'm a little worried what the field's going to be like for the 11 a.m. game. So,
True.
I mean, let's see what this is, because if this is like a grinded out type of game, well, that's a bit of a slight edge to Laurel then, because they were ultra comfortable playing that game a week ago and that style of football. A lot of people have asked me, they said, this week they're like, all right, Laurel beat Fort Cherry. Can they beat Clareton? I said two things to them. It's the first time I've ever seen a team play the number one team in the state back-to-back weeks, and I still haven't seen it, at any other level. And two, I said it's going to come down to whether or not Clareton is locked in, because if Clareton's locked in, they are almost impossible to beat. So the other two things I would say in this game that are important to me, special teams, because Maya Jarrett's been excellent kicking extra points. If the field's a mess, we know that they have Tony Geiwitz. You've got to get points in every possession. Laurel has the edge in special teams when it comes to kicking points with a guy like Geiwitz. They also have an advantage I think, in special teams in terms of punting. So if it becomes a field position game, much like it did last week with Fort Cherry, I believe they have the edge there too. The question's going to become, if he's pressed into making a play, will Lucas Santini step up and make a play? I trust Jeff Thompson a little bit more than what I do Santini, because he's got just better weapons. It's flat out. You want my honest
Hmm.
opinion? They have better weapons. So special teams, the weather, and then can Laurel capitalize when Clareton leaves that door open? Much like Fort Cherry last week, can they go on an 11-play 70-yard drive? If Clareton turns the ball over at the 50, you have to get points in that drive. You got to leave everything out there. There's every down, expend every down. You can't punt on fourth down. You got to go. I'm going for it on fourth down if I'm on my own one in this game. I don't care.
Yeah.
So you've got to make every down count, every possession count, try to impose your will on it. And I think it's two really strong-willed teams, and we're gonna have to see which one comes out on top because I give Laurel much better fighting chance than most will. But we've also been around them longer, so we understand them, I think, a little bit better than a lot of people do. And they're in this game. This is a four-quarter game. I think it comes down to a possession late in the game, and I don't know who's going to have the ball in that possession, but it's going to be a game-winning possession for somebody. I think this goes the distance here in this game on Saturday.
It's interesting, so sort of the parallels you do see, especially at that quarterback position, because Lucas Santini, a career season this year, 20 touchdowns versus just 4 interceptions on the year. You can say similar things for Jeff Thompson, more touchdowns. I mean, he had a 7 touchdown game back against Sarah Catholic early in the season. But both of these guys down the stretch have not thrown the ball as much.
Hardly, yeah.
Part of that, I mean, most of that is by design, I would say too, obviously. But I think you kind of alluded to it. When it comes down to it, who needs to make the big throw? Last week, Santini throws a touchdown pass, lets the receiver go get it. He has a 3rd and 6 near midfield, fires one in across for a first down. Whereas Thompson on the other side, he's got more interceptions in the last 2 weeks than he had in the entire regular season.
Yeah, and the other thing about this leads me into another point is from Laurel's perspective, this is going to be a little bit harder to run the ball like they did last week against Fort Cherry, against Clareton on Saturday, and they can't deviate from what they want to do too early in this game, and they can't feel like they have to get something back. If they go down 7-0, they can't just come out and take a low percentage throw or try to like hit a deep shot or something or like waste a down type of thing. They didn't do that last week, but this is a different animal. This is a little different feel of the game. It's a bigger stage. Gonna be really awkward being inside a 70,000 seat stadium when it's not full, and kind of getting used to your surroundings and things like that. That plays into Clareton's favor a little bit. But I just think like if they go down 7-0, Laurel can't say, well, if we want to run the ball 15 straight times, still run the ball 15 straight times. You can't punch yourself out too early in this game if you get behind. And the other thing you have to make sure you do if you're Laurel, and this I think would be the most important key, if you have a chance to slam the door shut on them, you must slam the door shut on them. You cannot leave them with 6 minutes in the fourth quarter hanging on to a 7-point lead. Like it's got to be like the door's got to shut the whole way. I mean, and the other thing where, Clareton might have a little bit of an advantage because they played in this game a year ago, just don't get wrapped up in it, man. It's a game. It's the field's the same length. It's the old Hoosiers thing. It's 10 feet.
Okay.
It's the field's 100 yards. The sidelines are the same width. It might seem a lot bigger, and trust me, it is bigger. I was just in that thing on Saturday, and I'm sure many going to the game have been inside of it too. But it's going to feel a little bit overwhelming. And these kids, a lot of them aren't going to get a chance to ever dress in an NFL locker room or walk out of an NFL tunnel or play on an NFL field or even be on an NFL field. And you just can't get too involved in that. It's between the lines, listen to your coaches, execute, go run your stuff. And if you can get through there, you get through there and get on to the next round. And I'll say this too. I think the winner of this game plays for a state title. I don't, it's not going to matter to me who the opponent is next week. The winner of this game is going to play for the 1A state title.
You talked about the offenses. I want to talk about both teams defensively. Let's start with Clareton. What do they need to do defensively to be able to slow down what Laurel likes to do on offense?
Well, it's pressure. It's all pressure off the edge. They play, a lot of people say they play a 5-man front. It looks more like a 3-man front with 2 stand-up edges. They're going to try to bring pressure from everywhere. They can really cover the flats very quickly too. They're so athletic. And then the middle guys, I mean, the middle guys are a load. Like imagine having like Kevin Mahoney play Kevin Mahoney. Like it's going to be a lot of that in the middle. It's going to be some paint swap. And I think it's just a matter of handling their pressure. And where Laurel maybe benefits from that a little bit this week is if Gnarly is out again, and I mean we assume he is, if they keep that offensive line the same as they did, they've got their two biggest on the outside. So they can protect against that speed on the outside and then hope that the middle guys can hold their own against the beef of that Clarendon defense. And then what Clareton does so well, at least what I've watched in a couple of the games that I've watched, is again thinking you have something down the field. There was a play early in the Canavan game last week where Canavan tried to take a shot deep in the first quarter, and it looked like it was a one-on-one down the field. And if you didn't pay attention to it, all of a sudden there were two other defenders there, and you're like, where the hell they come from? Like, who's got the cape on? Where are these guys coming from? They cover everything. I mean, they really do. So you've got to be calculated. We've said this all year long too. Like, there's this Laurel team is built where somebody can step up every week. This might be a big game for Nathan Hill if they win. I think Jack Miles is going to have another big game running the ball. This could be a big game for a dude like JJ McBride if a lot of attention is paid to Carlson. I think they're much the same. JJ's a little smaller, but there's other guys on this team that they can tap into and go to and make big plays here or there. There's going to be a point where they maybe call him like an Ethan Hamilla to catch a little curl route on the sideline and get a first down and keep a drive alive. But just it all comes back to just try to neutralize that speed as best you can on the outside. And if it means pound the ball 50 times and try to wear down the middle, then you just got to do it. They'll move those guys around, and then maybe you get a matchup you like on the outside, you can hit it for a big gain or something like that. You got to kind of play chess with them a little bit.
Yeah, Dakota Harris at 6'2", 285, Avon Pompey at 6'4", 310. That's a lot
Yeah,
of meat to be moving around.
if they are 285 and 310, then I'm Mr. Monopoly. There is no way in hell those guys are 310 and 285. That's like having two Andre the Giants there, man. Those are some big dudes up front. And they stood out so much on film when I watched that Canavan game. I was like, what is this in the middle? And it's like, oh yeah, it's those guys.
Yeah, Casey Wilson, the biggest lemon for Laurel at 5'10", 270. Hey, he's a state wrestler, finished sixth in states last year. He and those other guys up front are going to have their hands full, but they've been doing it all year long. It's going to be fun to watch that battle in the trenches, going both directions, but I think especially Laurel's offense against the Clareton defense. Flip the script now. In terms of Laurel defending so many weapons on the outside, I've only seen a couple of the games this year for Clareton, just watching some film, Eric. Not a lot of balls thrown deep down the field. A lot of short passes, screen passes, but they have four great athletes on the outside who are all going to catch passes throughout the course of the game.
It's so much yak for them. It's all basically yak yards after the catch. It's guys like Mike Ruffin. I mean, Mike Ruffin's a 4.5 kid, so if you throw the ball to him on like a little 3-yard route, he'll take it 80 yards if he has the chance to do it. And you gotta be disciplined. Like, you're gonna have to probably play back a little bit if you're Laurel, but not too far back. You can't allow too much underneath, unless you can get home. And that's the other thing too, is like we haven't talked too much in this game. Like, it's Wilson, it's Mahoney, it's Santini and Carlson, and these other guys for Clareton. Laurel has the speed too. Like, Alex Medved can cause a lot of problems if he can get the pass rush going for them. It's gonna, from a defensive standpoint, I said this to you earlier in the week when we were talking about this. From a defensive standpoint, you want a situation early in this game, if you're Laurel, where like somebody just lays a guy from Clareton out, because you need to let them know that you're not messing around in this game. Like, they need to kind of feel that a little bit and like kind of get punched back a little bit. And sometimes there's moments in games where it's a coach getting flagged for like a sideline warning or something, like jawing at the ref or whatever. Like, you just kind of have to let the team that you're, quote, not supposed to beat know that you're not messing around in this game. And Laurel's got the potential to do that. I mean, they got a couple guys that can really like decleat people. And I wouldn't be surprised, if you see something like uncorked early in that game to kind of rattle Clareton a little bit, get in their head, kind of flip the script a little bit, and then Laurel can again. It's going to be a chess match. It's chess. Like I don't see this being a blowout, and I don't see this being anything. Yeah, I could see either team winning by like 7 or 10, but I can't see like Clareton winning 56-0, unless they're just like completely focused on winning this crown. And that's the other thing, James. Like we talked about too before with like Wilmington and Fort Cherry and some of these teams in single A. I said a couple weeks ago, like Matt Sig is like, I have to win a state title. Like I need to leave my program the best at everything I've ever done, but I have to win a state title. These guys from Clareton were talking about that early in the year. And like Thompson even said in a story early in the year, he was like, I need a trophy. Like I cannot leave without a trophy. And when you like you get that locked in that early in the season, and then you go 13 games playing at that level the whole time, that's awfully, awfully tough to beat. And Laurel doesn't, and it's not any disrespect to them. Laurel doesn't have a kid that said that.
Mhm.
They expected to be good. There's no question. They expected to win the Big Seven. They expected to get WPIL playoffs. They knew the core that they have. But I didn't hear guys from Laurel say at the beginning of the year, I need to win a trophy. There is no other alternative. And it's like, man, he goes 13 weeks playing at the level he's played at. And yeah, they seem like they're locked in. And I can't see this being like the what would be like the 11 shutout Clarendon pitches this year. I can't see that happen. Laurel's going to be in this game 4 quarters.
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, they lost, Clareton did, to Imani Christian 19-12 in the first week of the year. They then went through the rest of the regular season without giving up a single point. They also won the first playoff game 50-0. But then the last two games, they barely hold on against Jeanette, 38-33. By the way, that's a Jeanette team that they beat 57-0 earlier in the year. They win by 5 in that one in the quarters, and then Canterman with 3 touchdowns in a 42-22 game in the semifinals as well. What has been the difference? Are these teams? I mean, it's not. You can't say that they're so much better than the ones in the regular season because they played Jeanette in both situations. But what is it that all of a sudden they've given up 7 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks after giving up none in 10 straight weeks combined?
Yeah, Jeanette said they saw something on the back end of their defense that they could expose. And thanks for telling us what it was, guys. Like we would
Yeah,
really like
really.
to know what that is. But they saw something that they could take advantage of, and they did. And Canavan last week, man, I really felt like they had a chance to really put that thing away and kind of got a little too emotionally invested in some early touchdowns and like kind of again like punched themselves out a little bit. They scored that touchdown early in the game and there was a lot of emotion, a lot of fire from that Canavan team early on. And I think they just got too wrapped up in it. Like you can't get wrapped up in beating the name or the program more than you can be about winning the game. Like it's Clareton. Like there's this amazing defense, and like we're doing this against them. No, you're doing this in a game. Like you can't put the opponent and the name of the opponent above what the ultimate goal in this game is. And I think Canavan got a little too wrapped up in the fact, like, yeah, this is Clareton and we're doing this to them. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but when you start thinking more about that kind of stuff, you've taken yourself out of the game. Like it's what I said earlier about just it's 100 yards. Go play a football game. Don't worry about what's on the jersey, what color the jersey is, that they were here last year. Do your homework, do your assignments, listen to your coaches, go play your game. And if you do everything that you're supposed to do and limit your mistakes and limit your penalties and make every drive count, if you lose 31-30, then you can say that you gave everything you had. I mean, I would much rather lose like a game 31-30 and know that I can hang with that team in the end than just be like, it's Clareton. We scored a touchdown in the first quarter against them. Hey, great. You still got 3 more quarters to go. I think Canavan got a little too wrapped up in that last week.
If you're Coach Cooper and that Laurel coaching staff, how much do you talk about? I mean, again, this is a team that hasn't been there, unlike Clareton team that they know what to expect walking out of that tunnel and all that. Do you talk specifically? Coach Coop played for Wilmington, played down at Old Three River Stadium. Coach Miles played, and older Coach Miles coached a couple of games there at Three Rivers in championship games. Do you bring in, the Todd Atkins or the John Horrells or the Chris Hupkos of the world, in to chat about just, hey, it's a game. Like you said, it's the Hoosiers mentality,
No,
or do you just go
no.
business as usual anyway?
You go business as usual. It's a different
Yeah.
team. It's a different mindset. It's a different style of team. It's a different era. I think a lot of these kids at Laurel probably appreciate the history. And, it's hard to not walk by that record board when you're in the hallway headed to the gym there at the school and, not know some of the names. I mean, my God, I watched Todd Atkins play college football. Like if he talked to me, I'd listen, but I'm 45. So there's a little bit different of the, I'm in my getting to my old man era now. It's
Back
it's
in my day.
exactly. It's a little bit different for a guy like me who, again, like likes Todd Atkins and like watched him play almost every game in college. But no, I don't know that you do that so much. I mean, if you want to bring in somebody who, could possibly like give like a motivational speech to the team or something, I think that's a little bit okay. But the eras are too far removed to really, I think, tap into that too much. And they don't need to go that far for it. They have Brian Cooper. If any of those guys have a question, they can go and ask him. I mean, he knows what it's like to play at this level and play for a championship. So I don't know necessarily that you really put kind of like more pressure on them by bringing somebody in to talk to him. If they want to, I'm sure he's going to say, he's not going to say no to it. But I just think you gotta respect the era that they're in now. It's a little bit different of a mentality with kids these days, and I think it's a little too far away from that era to really like get out of it what you expect to get out of it. It's a little bit different. If those guys wanted to watch practice or something or, introduce themselves to the team, I think, yeah, but I just don't know that those kids can really like, I don't know that that game means a lot to them from back in the 80s.
Well, if I mean, there's hardly any. You got to go and pull teeth and go crazy deep diving on the internet to even find an old newspaper article, and that's just from the late '80s of some of this to find information on those games. But
But you know
that's
what
neither here
though?
nor there either.
That stuff that you're talking about though, that works like if you're Aliquippa. Because and it's not a knock on anybody that's ever played at Laurel. Like Atkins is one of the best Penn State football players ever, I think, anyway. I mean, he played on some excellent, excellent teams there towards the end of his career.
Should have been a championship team, but I
Should have been
digress.
right, exactly. And I believe was part of the 91 team where if there was a playoff, probably would
Mhm.
have made it to a national title game the way they were playing at the end of the year. But with oddly enough, with OJ McDuffie and a couple of those other guys, I think he might have been there at the very tail end of Terry Smith too, when Terry was a player. But you can do that kind of thing in Aliquippa where it's Revis and Ty Law and Hall of Famers. Like there's a different level of tapping into that kind of thing. And I think in some regards it works at Aliquippa because of what their history is, and it might work at Clareton where they have a Tyler Boyd who's an NFL name, and that kind of thing. I just think it's the atmosphere is a little bit different at Laurel, and the kind of what you get out of that if you tap into it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I mean, you've heard Coach Warfield talk about it, and I know you've heard the same from Clareton coaches over the years as well. Yeah, you alluded to it. You said the Clareton players, expected to, and it is expected almost of them that we need to win a championship. Period. We need to win a championship. Um, that puts a lot of pressure on a young man, and that's I think a big part of it too. Is that I don't want to say pressure is completely off for Laurel, but very few expected them to get here except for themselves. They're just playing for themselves. They're playing loose. They have an opportunity to do something that um, very few ever saw doing. And pressure can be a big thing, again, especially if Laurel can potentially get an early score, force Clareton into situations they're not used to. That's, I think, a big possible recipe for success. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, at least. You saw it with Union 4 years ago, too, Eric, is that no one expected them to be there. They just went out there, they played their game, and they ended up coming out victorious because there was very little pressure on them. Just go and play a game. That's what it's going to be. Go play for 48 minutes. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think that it's paramount for this Laurel team to not deviate from what they've done all year with their schedule during the week.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like leading up to a game, it's a little bit different because it's 11 a.m. So your Friday night's going to be a little bit different. But just like your practice, your preparation, that kind of thing. I think it's important to keep them on the same schedule, and they're going to get that kind of sense of community and like the everybody looking at them when if they do a pep rally, that's and look, this is I'm not a big fan of the participation trophy and like the rewarding, second place because it's if you don't want to win, you don't play sports. But if when these guys go home on Saturday on their bus ride, there better be a whole bunch of people that greet them because this team deserves it, this crew deserves it, this staff deserves it. They're going to be highly regarded as one of the best teams ever, even if they don't win a trophy on Saturday. And I think that's important for them. So that already is like enough pressure. Like trying to go
Yeah.
win the game's enough pressure, and playing for your community and your school and all that's enough pressure. So I think it's just important just to keep them on the same schedule the whole week. Don't change anything with your practice routine or your film study or whatever the case is, and just make sure that Friday night everybody's, if Brian Cooper can go around door to door in every neighborhood and do a door check, do it.
Well,
Don't,
I
don't
mean,
keep them in a hotel, but just go do your door check at everybody's house.
yeah, there you go. Well, I'll tell you what, you want to be checking many doors come Saturday morning because from the sounds of things, you're going to have just about all of Harlansburg, Hickory Township, Scott Township, everybody making their way down south to the North Shore for that championship game. Again, 11 a.m. Is the scheduled kickoff,
Hey, can I
probably
give
11:05. Yes, please.
two recommendations here?
Yeah, do it.
Number one, if you can, I would tell you it's a little bit difficult to get to, but if you can park somewhere outside of the North Shore and take the T in, it drops you off. Allegheny Station will drop people off right at the stadium. That's actually how I'm going to go Saturday. So you can ride with me and we can talk. But if you can do a park and ride somewhere like in Mount Lebanon or Dormont or whatever, and then just take the T over to Allegheny Station, that might alleviate some parking issues. It's free parking at those park and rides too. And number two, there's plenty of spots. If you haven't been on the North Shore, the draft clock is down there. So I urge everybody to go check the draft clock
Yeah.
out. Saw that last week. It's pretty cool. But that strip right there where like some of the restaurants are, you want to go down a little further and you want to hit the ones closer to the ballpark, the baseball stadium, if you're sticking around afterwards.
So that's where you're going to go after, but
I
also
won't drop
want
any names, because unless you
to
guys want to fork over to help us pay for some rights, I'm not name dropping places, but go over towards the baseball park a little bit.
I will also say this though: if you are sticking around after, make sure that you are parked outside of where the light up night festivities will
Yep.
be taking place as well. That's another potential issue that's going to pop up. But all we know is we fully expect, and we know they will. Laurel fans, all of Lawrence County fans, always come out to support their teams, and especially when it hasn't happened in 36 years, making it to a championship game, you know that everybody's going to be all out. And again, and the number of messages that we've gotten already from Laurel alumni across the state, a couple I've actually gotten asking for information. One living from out in, oh, forgive me, it's somewhere near the West Coast, Arizona, New Mexico, maybe. Just shout out to all of your Laurel alum who are keeping tabs and staying around and following your alma mater. It's always really cool to see those sort of stories as well. We'll enjoy bringing it to you again from 11 a.m. from Acrisure Stadium. Eric and I will be on the call for what's going to be a hopefully a fantastic. Well, it's going to be a fantastic day no matter what, but hopefully a exciting and historic day for Laurel Spartans. One final piece of information from Eric Thomas. Any final thoughts he has before we
Just
wrap up this episode?
Yeah, just real quick too about the light up night situation. Stanwix
Yeah,
and Penn Avenue and Fort Duquesne and 6th Street are where all the congestion is going to be. So you're you're on the other side of the river from that stuff, but at the same time, a lot of people may take the, Clemente
mhm.
or something or plan on doing that to get over to the stadium, depending on how you're coming in. But you want to avoid those areas. So if you're at the stadium, you can get in and out right on 279 and go back up that way. You should be okay.
Again, tickets are all online. You can get the tickets purchased while you're at the will call station. Essentially, gates do not open until 10 a.m. If anybody has a good spot where a morning tailgate is happening, anybody's cooking some sausage sandwiches or anything, uh, yeah, give us a
Call.
call. Give us a shout out. We'll
Use
definitely
this
stop
thing
on
and
our way
call
in.
us, please.
No, we appreciate again all the great sponsors. Again, give a shout out to the sponsors who have jumped on board here for this championship game, helping to support the Laurel Spartans. First, the Laurel Administration, Wolf Sport and Auto, Sneezick Farms, Briar Brook Barn, Vision Ministries of Lawrence County, and Shingle Decker Insurance. Big thanks to them for jumping on board. We please support these sponsors, support all of our great sponsors throughout the course of the year. Without them, we don't have a Lawrence County SportsNet. But we also don't have LC Sports, and without the great teams that we've been able to cover over these last 5 years, and we will continue to cover for many, many years to come as well. Synchronize your watches. Get down there early. 10 a.m. gates open. Kickoff just after 11. You can watch on KDK Plus, but you're going to listen to us on the Lawrence County SportsNet, powered by LCAP. That wraps up this episode. Stay tuned. We'll have a couple other little preview videos coming out, getting you ready for this big game on Saturday morning to help get you ready to go. Tune in to us on the way down to the stadium. Listen to these last couple episodes as we preview all these games. And, of course, tune in Saturday morning live from the ACK at lcsportsnet.com. For Eric Thomas, I'm James Dobson. We'll see you down at the North Shore on Saturday morning. Thanks for tuning in Beyond the Scoreboard at lcsportsnet.com.